Hi everyone. So like I said in class, I'm going to do this video on how to use Excel. We're going to download some data from gapminder.org, and then we're going to apply some functions to it. I'm going to tell you about cell references, and then we're going to learn how to make a basic table that you could export with some summary statistics, more or less, that you could export to another document like a Word document. So to get started, you can either go to gapminder.org/data or just Google it, Gapminder, and then click on this link here, download the data. And from here, you're just going to wait for this to populate down here. And you're going to select an indicator for your assignment. It's going to be any indicator that you want that has data, and you have to be careful because some of these spreadsheets actually have text instead of data, so make sure it's something with numbers. But what we're going to be working with for this video is life expectancy, so you can just click on that, and then from there the spreadsheet will load in your browser. And then you'll also see an option for downloading the data as a CSV or an Excel file. We'll go ahead and download the Excel file. This will go to your download folder, wherever that is on your machine. And then once you locate it, you can open it, and then it'll look like this. Okay, from here what we want to do is just to take a basic function to get some experience with that. And what we'll do is we'll just start off with an average equals average. Any function you apply is going to start with an equal sign, then the name of the function, then an open parentheses, and then the cell reference. So here we want to go from B2 to B196, and the reason that we did that was because we want to start with B2, which is after the cell after the header. We don't want to take the header information or the, this cell here, because this is the year, and if we include that in the average, that's going to inflate the average and that'll mess up our calculation. So B2 through B196, okay, and then we took the average of that. One other thing I want to show you real quick before we keep going here is how to lock the how to freeze the panes. So if you go to View and then you go to Freeze Panes and just click Freeze, you can choose Freeze Top Row or Freeze Column. I usually just freeze like that, Freeze Panes. And that way, if you're scrolling this way or if you're scrolling down, you don't lose track of where you are on the spreadsheet. You know what year you're looking at, what country you're looking at, for example. Sometimes I find it also helpful to bold like country names or years, just again so I know what I'm looking at. Makes it easier to work with. Okay, so here we go. Again with the, we just took an average. And so one thing I also want to show you is that you can copy if you hit Control C on a PC. Is it Command C or something like that on a Mac? Used to be a Mac user. I haven't used a Mac in a long time, but Control C basically, and then you can just copy the same function as far down as you want. You could go all the way down to the present day. We'll just stop there and just hit Control V, and then that will give you the average. The global average is essentially what this is. The average for all countries, life expectancy, the average life expectancy for all of the countries for each year, right? And it gives you a little warning sign here because you didn't include all the adjacent cells. Don't worry about that. You can just ignore that error. But that's how you copy and paste a function. Okay, from there, one thing I want to tell you about is cell references. So this is a just basically a relative reference. So if I just put B2 to B196 and then I copy and I go to the next cell, as like you saw, it'll take the average of the next column over, rather than the average of the 1799 column. Is going to take the average of the 1800 column. What if I copy and I paste it below? What's it doing there? I get a slightly different number. Actually, I get a larger number. Why is that? That's because it's taking the average of B3 through B197. And that's not something that we want. So if we wanted to, that doesn't really make any sense. So if we wanted to copy and paste this function to the next row, then what we would want to do is we'd want to fix the row reference. So to have a fixed reference, we have to have a dollar sign. So B $2 and to B $196. So then when we copy and paste the row, it gives us the exact same number. So then what happens if we copy and paste this to here? Well, now it's giving us again the average for this column. That's because we have not fixed the column reference. But if we do that, if we fix the column reference, $B2 to $B196, and then we copy it, it will give us the exact same number as the original cell. That's because both the column and the row reference are now fixed. And where this comes in handy is if you want to take, like, you want to either multiply, usually it's multiply, or do some transformation on a range of cells with one fixed number. So let's say, for example, instead of percentage, looking at these numbers in percentage terms, we wanted to look at them as just decimal numbers. So we could take the value 0.01 over here, and then what we could do is we could do equals this times this, but we could do it with a fixed cell reference. Dollar sign. So we're fixing the cell reference. We're multiplying B196 times this fixed reference here, 0.01, and then we get the decimal figure that we want. And then what we can do is we can just cut and paste that number. Well, it's not so meaningful there because nothing's varying over time. But if we went down, or hold on a second, let me find a better example here. So let's say instead of B196, we're going to pick a country where the life expectancy is actually changing over time. So let's find an example of that. Maybe a Western country that had better data during that time period, because a lot of these are repeat values that we're seeing here. So let's go to Germany, no. Denmark, no. How about the United States? Does the United States have? Nope, the United States isn't varying either. Okay, so let's say we wanted to go down the column instead. So we're going to start in 181. So that's the value for Taiwan. Okay, and now we're going to calculate, we're going to do that calculation for Taiwan, Tanzania, Uganda, Ukraine, etc. Okay, and then we can just repeat that value, or repeat that calculation multiple times. So you can see 0.283, 0.322, 0.253, and that's because, and you can see that $A, $200 is a fixed reference. So every time I copy and paste that, it remains fixed. Okay, so we're going to clear this out here, and I just want to also make sure that you realize that you can also do this. We've been doing this for columns, but you can do it for any cell reference. You can apply a function to any cell reference that you like. So the next thing I want to show you is that just that you can do this for rows, and sometimes that's useful too. So if we're looking at country data that's organized in this way, and we want to get like a country average for a period of time, like let's say we want to take a country average for, let's pick a country, any country, Brazil, okay, and we want to do it for, let's say 2000 to 2020. 2000 for Brazil, the cell reference there would be GU25, okay, to GU to HO25, GU25 to HO25. And let's go ahead and just do that average there. Equals average GU25 to HO25, 73.91. Again, it gives you that little error because you're not choosing all the adjacent cell, but you intended to do that, so just go ahead and get rid of that. All right, so that's how we apply function to rows and columns in Excel. And what I want to show you next is how to do this, how to perform calculations in a separate worksheet, because this comes in handy if if you want to create a table or something like that, or you don't want to do, you have a big spreadsheet like that is, and you don't want to have to do all your work on a crowded worksheet. So what we're going to do here is we are going to calculate the minimum. We'll just do min, median, average, max, years. We're going to do a count of the number of years greater than 50 using the count if function, and then we're going to do percentage of years where the life expectancy is greater than 50. And we're going to do the global average. The first thing we're going to do is the global average for a select number of years. So we're going to start off, we're going to do 1799, 1899. We're going to do 4 years, 1999, and projecting into the future, 2099. Okay, and we're going to apply the min function for 1799 for all the countries in 1799. So going back to our spreadsheet, we're going to go way back over here, and we're going to take B2, and we remember this is B2 to B196, right? Remember that? So there's 195 countries in the data set, where, yeah, not all of them have data for every year, but that's a cell reference that we're going to take, B2 to B196. So we're going to do equals min, and then to get the reference to the other worksheet, we want the name of the worksheet, life underscore expectancy underscore years, and then an exclamation point. And that tells Excel that we're referencing another worksheet. That's this one here. And you can see the name here is life underscore expectancy underscore years. All right, and then we want to take the cell reference underscore B, and we'll go ahead and fix it so that we're just absolutely sure nothing is going to move. Underscore B $B $2 $B. The $sign again is the fixed cell reference to $B 196, and that should give us the minimum value, 23.4. So that was the lowest life expectancy in 1799. All right, so then what can we do? So next, what we want to do is we want to do the median. So we want the same cell reference there. So we can just copy and paste that. And then we can change the function that we're using. That's an easy way to do that. Okay, so that's the median life expectancy for all countries for 1799. And then we can do the average, which we've already done, but we're going to do it again here. Okay, and the average there is close to the median, so it's not a lot of skewing of the data. And then we can take the max. What was the max life expectancy of any country in 1799? It was 42.9. So this was back in Hobbes's day, or pretty close to that. So when he was writing Leviathan, so like he said, life was nasty, brutish, and short. It was definitely short. Let's see. And then what we can do is we can do a COUNTIF function, COUNTIF life expectancy years, and then we give it the cell reference, then a comma, then parentheses, and then we put a condition greater than 50. Okay, and how many? This is basically counting how many countries had a life expectancy greater than 50, and we kind of already know that number. It's 0 because the max was 42.9, right? And then for percentage, but we're going to go ahead and do that calculation anyway. What we can do for percentage is we can, referencing this number here, equals this number divided by, and here what I want to do is I want to put count A. This counts the number of cells in a range that are not empty, right? So this is the number of countries. So we're taking the percentage relative to the number of countries that have data, right? Because we don't want to, it would mess up our calculation if we included all those countries that the number of countries that didn't have data, right? So we only want to count the number of, we only want to count countries that have the data, right? So equals C7 divided by count A, and here we're going to do life, actually, sorry, I want to take this parentheses out. Count A, and here we want to go life expectancy years, and then we want to do the exclamation point, and then we want the cell reference here, B2, and again we're going to fix it just to be safe. B2 to $B $192, and that should work. And again, that's 0. Okay, so that's 1799. So now we're going to do the same thing for 1899, 1999, and 2099. And what we have to do in order to do that is to get the cell references for those years. So we'll go back over here to the spreadsheet, and we'll go fast forward here to 1899. And the cell reference for 1899 is CX. CX. Okay. CX is going to be CX2 through CX196. And why don't we go ahead and name this sheet here? We can rename it analysis. All right, that way we have a name for the sheet. Okay, so what we can do here is we can, now that we have the fixed cell references, we don't have to worry about anything. Well, we will have to change. I take that back. We're going to have to change the cell reference, but let's go ahead and copy that. But now we don't have to change the function, right? So we can just change this to CX, and we can change this to CX, right? And then actually what we could do here is we could copy and paste all of this, right? And now that's wrong. It's not for 1899, but what we can do now is we can just select these cells and we can hit Control F. If you hit a Control F, I think you should be able to see that. I hope you can see that on your screen. We're going to do a find and replace. So go to replace, do find what, and you're going to find a B, and you're going to replace it with CX. And as long as you have this column here selected, it should only replace within that column, okay? And then we'll just go ahead and hit replace all, and it made 12 replacements, and we can kind of go in and make sure everything's right. And now we have CX, 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 CX. That all looks right, and that all looks right. Count A, count the number of years for which the value is not missing, and then that's all correct. So now we can see that 3 countries have a life expectancy in 1899 over 50. Life was still pretty short by today's standards. And that would be, it's not the percent, but yeah, but we would actually need to multiply this by 100 to get the percent, but still less than 2% of countries have a life expectancy. The average has come up slightly, but not much, from 31.5 to 34. The median from 31.75 to 33.7. Okay. Okay. So now we can do the same thing for 1999. And the cell reference for 1999 is going to be GT. So we'll do all of that again now, replacing CX. Well, like I said, we're going to do it with a replace. We're going to replace CX with GT. Okay, there we go. Now, almost all countries, 186, have a life expectancy more than 50. And the percentage with life expectancy more than 50 is now over 97%. So what a difference a century makes, right? And let's see, what do the data from Gapminder predict about the future? So let's see from 2099. Went down too far. It's going to be KP. I don't even know why I'm scrolling down. KP. So let's go back to sheet, the worksheet here, and we're going to do another replace. Oops. Control F, not Control R. What did I say that was? KP. And we're going to replace this the GT now with KP, replace all. Okay, and what we end up with is that we see that the minimum expected life expectancy for all countries in 2099 again increases from 43.8 to 67.7. The median from 70.3 to 85. The mean from 67 to 84. The max from 81 to 94. All countries with data virtually have a life expectancy higher than 50. And here we get a funny result, and I think this is because actually, yes, there is a slight error in this formula. Maybe you already noticed it. I put 192 instead of 196, so let me go ahead and fix that in each of these cells. 196, 196, and 196. So a century from now, 100% of countries will have a life expectancy of greater than 50 years. So an optimistic outlook for the future. Okay, so then the last thing we want to do here is just take some country averages. So let's compare the United States, China, and India, and let's do it for an average from 1999 to 2099. Okay. All right, and we're going to go over here to this spreadsheet, and we're going to go and figure out which country China is. China is 34, so we can just write this down. China is 34. India is 80. India 80. And the US is going to be 186. So US 186. And then we're going to 2099. So KP is the endpoint. And then the first year here is going to be 1999. GT. GT to KP, right? And we remember that from the previous, when we were doing these years, we can verify that here, but yeah, GT to KP. So what we want is a cell reference that's going to be equals average, and remember we're reaching back to that other cell, so we're going to say life expectancy years exclamation point, and then we'll fix the cell reference just to be sure. And again, we're going from GT 186 to KP 186. Okay, and I like to just fix all of the reference points there, just because we're reaching back to another spreadsheet, and we're going to make a table out of this and stuff, so we want to make sure everything is just nice and tied down there. So China, again, we're just going to change here the row reference. So China is going to be 34. So 34 and 34, right? And then India is going to be, what did we say, 80. 80 to 80. All right, and that's the expected average life expectancy for these three countries for the next 100 years, more or less, or from 1999 to 2099. Okay, and so quite a bit of convergence there in the modern era from among middle income and high income countries, and eventually I think the prediction is that all countries are going to be high income countries, or that's the hope, right? Okay, great. So what can we do from there to beautify our findings here? So one thing we can do is we can just change these numbers into numbers. So if we go to home and we go to here to the number format, we can just change them to numbers so they all have the same number of decimal points. That's a kind of a nicer look than having all of those decimal points, which we may not need. Sometimes you want them, but here I don't think we need that. For this one, we can turn this into, we can convert this into a table. We can do a format as table. So we can go over to format, and we can do a format as table. Oh, sorry, format as tables here. Oops. So there you go. So you can click on format as table, and then you'll get this little dialog that'll pop up, and you can click my table has headers because it does, and then hit OK, and then it will give you a table, and then you can sort. It's not so useful here, but you can sort things according to different columns. Like you could sort all the countries by 1799 figures from highest to lowest. It's not so useful here, but it's just nice for formatting purposes. And then what you can do is you can just kind of copy and paste this and put it in your Word document or what have you. Okay. All right, that's all I have for you today on Excel, and your assignment is basically going to be based on this little lesson, and I'll talk more about it in class tomorrow.